Welcome inside the Broncos podcast studio for another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, as always, is our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. We enter Week 14 looking ahead to an AFC West divisional matchup as the Broncos go on the road to face the Las Vegas Raiders, looking to sweep them for the second consecutive season. There's a lot to get to in this episode. We're going to talk some comments, a little Walter Payton Man of the Year honors that was given to Garett Bolles, and just talk about this matchup that is very key despite the record that the Raiders have. I think this game is really important. A lot of the guys have been talking about that and just the importance of the Broncos getting their 10th win and what that means. But we're going to kick it off to you as you look ahead to this matchup. Just your early thoughts before we get into the thoughts of Broncos country.
Yeah, I think that this is an important game kind of in the big picture of what the Broncos hope to accomplish this year in terms of seeding, in terms of competing for that one seed. This is an important game because if you win this game, then you hold the tiebreaker over the New England Patriots. And we'll get into this in a minute, but Broncos themselves, the players, are not necessarily looking around and saying, here's who is at the top of the standings, here's who we're competing with, because the Broncos are right in that if they just keep winning, things kind of take care of themselves. But that said, if the Broncos do slip at some point, a win against the Raiders would guarantee that whether the Broncos and Patriots both finish 15-2, 14-3, 13-4, whatever it may be, if they finish with the same record, the Broncos would have the edge over the Patriots and would get that number one seed, assuming they're the two teams kind of jockeying for it there. They're the teams right now that really have the main shot at it. Buffalo has kind of a tough road to get up there. Jacksonville, Indy, they're both 8-4, have a chance, but it's Denver and New England right now for all intents and purposes. And when you look at this game, if the Broncos can get a win, they secure the better record between themselves and the Patriots and common opponents. And so it's head-to-head first in terms of tiebreakers. Obviously, the Broncos and Patriots, they don't play each other this year. Then it goes to conference record. It seems like right now the Broncos are going to be tied with the Patriots in conference record. And then it goes to common opponents. And way back in week one, if you remember, the Patriots lost to the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit hard to believe now, but of the two Raiders wins, I know.
Who would have thought that win would have implications now in week 14?
Yeah, that's right. And all the way back then, the Raiders have 2 wins this season, and one of them came against the Patriots in week 1. Patriots obviously now 10-2. So if the Broncos win this weekend, it would give them, I believe, 6-0 among those common opponents. The Patriots have a loss to the Raiders. So I don't know if the guys are aware of that or not, but I think that kind of as a fan, as you're watching this one matters, and it means a little bit more than kind of a normal quote-unquote game against a 2-10 opponent. And obviously you don't want to slip up in that sort of game, but it's more than just the division, the ability to sweep them in back-to-back years for the first time in more than a decade. It's also about, hey, here's a real tangible thing that you can look at and say, we can put the tiebreaker on our side if we win this football game.
Yeah, it's one of those games that we talked about it all season. This AFC West race, not only within the division, but overall was going to be very important. And it's coming to life even more now. And I know Broncos country has a lot to say after the Washington win. So we're going to toss us some comments to check the pulse of Broncos country. I know this is one of your favorite segments of the show. Hopefully it's your guys' favorite segment of the show too. So make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts. But yeah, let's kick it off with some comments.
Yeah, we'll start with our Thanksgiving episode. Thanks to people who tuned in, even though it was a holiday. Maybe they got away from their...
they took your advice.
Yeah, they stepped away and they listened to the show. Rombomb 001 says, I believe I speak for all of us when I say we are thankful for Elisa, Aric, and everyone behind the scenes who makes Altitude Advantage an excellent production. Always looking forward to listening. Happy Thanksgiving.
Aww. Shout out Emmy.
Kawhi 808. I think that's my best guess at a pronunciation.
Is that Ike?
No, it's not. It's not spelled like Kawhi Leonard. It's Kuaiwa. That was my guess. I think they are quoting you here. Thanksgiving is that time where you're glad it's only once a year. Pretty sure you said that. So they left a lot.
I love my family though.
They left a lot of crying, laughing, and they said, "Dying. Someone must have to go to the in-laws this year." So they I feel your pain. Ryder West says, let's go. Already the best season in 10 years. Some tough years, but we never gave up. Look at us now. Worth the wait. The good days are back. Go Broncos. Alan Stoddard, great show as always. Happy Thanksgiving. Go Broncos. Bulwark Tier. I always have a tough one with Bulwark Tier, but keeps commenting. Thank you for listening. #1 Broncos podcast. Go Broncos. Fishy Fam.
Fishy.
What's up, Fishy? Very excited about these signings. Seems like to me some team-friendly deals. Keeping our core together for the foreseeable future is a great start to continue competing for Super Bowls. I don't see many holes that we have on this team. Excited to see how RJ Harvey develops. Let's go Broncos. Harvey, yeah, he'll be a big part of this final stretch of the season, especially the regular season for the Broncos. It'll be exciting to see what he can do. Let's see what else. Oh, Fishy Fam also said, Happy Thanksgiving.
Shout out Fishy Fam. Well, as you're looking for another comment, I think there's truth into that other comment that he left, because Nick Bonito spoke about that in the locker room, saying, like, when they asked him, what is it about these close games you guys are able to see the positive side of it? And he's like, well, we've been together for 3 years. It's kind of what you get when you play with the same guys over and over again. You get that continuity, that chemistry going, and they're seeing the positive outcome of that. So
that's right. All Game 1760 says this podcast is legendary. You deserve to be in the Denver Broncos Podcast Hall of Fame. I believe in our Broncos. We're about to win the whole AFC West. Been watching this pod since it started. Let's continue the dub. James Diego says, Elisa is a data nerd. Love it.
Yeah, you're the data nerd.
There you go. No, you got your stats. You got your stats going. Robert Barlow says, Aric is like, I'm in my 30s. I'm a man. I feel you, Aric. We're both men now. Okay. Congrats to me and Robert.
You're all grown up.
Congrats to us. And then James Diego, who just called you a nerd, but I think in a good way. Yeah. Said, only Die Hard once, Aric. Sorry, buddy. Bro card revoked until you see it again. Smiley face. Okay. I'll have to come back for my bro card. Oh, no, I got rid of the next page. Have to come back and get my bro card from Diego at another time.
Make sure it works.
Sorry, I'm pulling this back up real quick. This is the beauty of live, not really live.
It is television. Live. It's happening right now. Real time. It's live to us.
All right, here we go. All right, this is after the win. Jason Bonney says, let's not forget that VJ was Cliff Kingsbury's DC in Arizona. He's very familiar with him and his defensive philosophy. That was about the game. That's an interesting point there. Fishy Fam said 10-2, let's go Broncos. Wasn't pretty at times, but the heart, determination, grit, and valiant effort of our team prevailed at the end when it mattered most. Okay. Brahma Bear, I dread East Coast games as well. Where I'm at, kickoff begins at 3 a.m. the next day.
Brahma Bear.
Yeah, I think so.
Be Drama Bear.
Yeah, but maybe not. Maybe Brahma. I don't know what that is, but it's nice. Okay, so Brahma Bear must be in Europe, I assume.
Yeah.
That's a 7 hour difference. Oof, that's tough.
That is tough. That's loyalty right there. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Martin C. Here's a good one. And maybe we save this for the end.
Oh, okay.
My dear Elisa and Aric, now that we can vote for the Pro Bowl, which Broncos players will be chosen, and also which Broncos should be chosen.
All of them.
Martin, we'll get back to that later in the show, and talk about Pro Bowl, because you're right. Pro Bowl voting has begun. It's going on for a little bit while longer, and certainly some deserving Broncos.
A lot of them in
something being off center. I don't know.
We're back. Right. We're back to being centered. We're back to being centered correctly.
And here's this is not really a comment from a fan. It's just for me. My hair looked really nice in the last episode, so just wanted to bring that to your attention. Especially coming off, I got right off the plane, came right here.
Look, your hair understood
that
the
hair
assignment.
Came right in from the East Coast, ready to go.
They understood the assignment. I told you came back from the future. You're already good, ready to go.
Monday, and then it was
Well, we appreciate you guys leaving comments on our YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys listening. And yes, we hope you guys all had a happy Thanksgiving. And we're all really thankful for just this season and how great it has gone. But this team, we've talked about it. What makes this team special? And it's truly the guys that are here. They're playing for each other. The big part of that team and the heart of this offense is Garett Bolles. And not only what he does on the field, but off the field. And we announced it that he is the nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. A huge honor for what he does in the community and truly causes close to him with his family. But what did you think when that news came down and just how deserving he is to get this spotlight?
Yeah, I think, well, one, congrats to Garett, and it's well-deserved. And first, what stands out to me is that he's a two-time Man of the Year club winner, and that's difficult. I mean, there's a lot of guys that do terrific things in the community, and it's more, this requires more than, going in the community and volunteering at team events. Like a lot of the times the team's Walter Payton Man of the Year has some sort of initiative or cause or like an kind of an overarching, kind of theme that they're working toward. And so there's so many guys that do such good work in the community and volunteer each week. And, I don't know if that always gets talked about as much as it should. Like on Tuesday, I was with Zach Allen for a shopping spree he hosted for kids in the community. He did a turkey drive earlier this year. Nick Benito did a turkey drive. I mean, I could go on and on and on about all these guys that help out. But the Walter Payton Man of the Year, there's normally a kind of a bigger cause, and it often takes years to sort of develop your resume, your case, if you will, in terms of why you're deserving of that Walter Payton Man of the Year honor. And so for Garett to be recognized with that, it's obviously really significant, really meaningful. He has kind of two different things that he's worked with and given a lot of his time to. And one of those is, visiting youth at justice centers and justice-involved youth and giving back to them. And that's particularly meaningful. And that was kind of a key part of why he was nominated last time. And this time he's also he's launched a school, essentially, which is he's launched an institute to educate people on childhood apraxia of speech, which is something that his son has dealt with for a long time, and it helps train speech language pathologists. It's really interesting, and he's partnered with a speech language pathologist who I think actually is a Chiefs fan, but he's started to convert her toward the Broncos. But yeah, whether it's he's participates in a juvenile probation court mentorship program. He's got this new school that he's helping to open that's going to train teachers, and it starts to leave a legacy that goes beyond the field and what you do on the field. And obviously Garett has been here longer than anybody, and he's started a bunch of games, and I think has played as well as certainly any offensive lineman in the league this year. And then you add the community stuff to it, and it really starts to develop a legacy. So, if you're interested in learning more, go to denverbroncos.com. We've got a bunch of information about this, and I'll give a plug to our friend Nick Kosmider at The Athletic. He did a nice story on the initiative that he's working with in terms of the apraxia education, and certainly can hear it spoken about and written about much more eloquently than I did there. But a credit to Garett and what he's been able to do in the community.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, it's not just one. You wish that all of them could be nominated because they all do amazing work and they all value the Denver Broncos community in general, just Colorado community in general. And I think that extends even to ownership with the All In, All Covered and kind of what they've been able to do with high school football and just different parts of the state. So it's great to see, and it's great to have Garett Bolles honored for that. So we're excited for him. And again, congratulations to him. And congratulations to this Broncos team, because as we mentioned, 10-2, 10 wins on the season. All year, the guys have been talking about it's that race to 10, that race to 10. Well, now they've crossed that finish line, but now the goalpost moves even further because there's a lot more that they want to accomplish. But they're off to a good start with 10 wins. I spoke to Evan Ingram yesterday after practice, and he mentioned, 10 wins is very hard to get, but we want more than that. That is just one part of the bigger picture that we're trying to paint and accomplish this season. And I know that Bo Nix spoke about the importance of 10 wins, but what else they want to do this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, there is there needs to be a second and just kind of credit what this team has done. And as Bo said, last year took them 17 games to get 10 wins. Took the very last game at home against the Chiefs to earn the 10th win, clinch a playoff spot. And that was a big step for this organization. And now we've seen them take the next step. And it doesn't matter how they're winning. They all count the same. And I don't know who to credit, but I saw on Twitter somebody put out kind of the stats between the 2015 Broncos through 12 games and this year's Broncos through 12 games. And the point differential, the margin of victory, the record, the points for, the points against, like all these things they're right there. And we look back at that 2015 team now and remember them as this all-time great defense, of course, an offense that made plays when they need to, and most importantly, as world champions. And for whatever reason, nationally, and listen, some of it, to kind of interrupt myself, some of it doesn't matter, right? Like, at some point, the Broncos are going to play, like, you have the Raiders this week, but then every other team left on your schedule, is at 500 or above. At some point, you're gonna play these teams, and you're going to either win these games or you're not, and you're going to get to the playoffs, and you're either going to go on a run or you're not. Like, this is all going to work itself out at some point, and so to some degree, whether it's national analysts saying, "Oh, what the Broncos are doing isn't sustainable," or people saying, "Oh, the Patriots record at 10-2, they haven't beaten anybody." All this stuff is going to work itself out, and so you don't want to get. I don't want to like give it too much attention because to some degree, it's a little bit silly of saying like, "Oh, the Broncos 10-2 record doesn't matter," like, or they can't keep winning like this, or there's teams below them that are better. We're going to find all that out. But what is worth saying is that they are on kind of the same type of pace as that 2015 team, and they've won 4 consecutive games by 3 points or fewer. They're only the second team to ever do that. I think I mentioned it maybe on Monday, the 1986 Giants, who went on to win the Super Bowl, coached by Sean Payton's mentor, Bill Parcells. That's the only other team to do it. And kind of coincidentally enough, it also happened weeks 9 through 12 for that Giants team. And so they are doing things that and Sean Payton mentioned this after the game in Washington, they're doing things that other championship teams do. All championship teams go through stretches like this. And listen, it doesn't guarantee you anything, but going 10-2 puts you in a position now to go for that 1 seed, to go for a high seed. Even if you don't get the 1, if you're the 2, you're guaranteed, if you win, multiple games at home in the playoffs. And then, who knows what happens with the 1 seed. You could end up even hosting a championship game if it comes to that. So you've put yourself like the funny thing to me is when people are like, "Oh, Denver's won all these 1-score games. It's not sustainable. They're not a real tenant." Like, would you prefer they lost those games and be like? It reminds
me of that meme. You sure about that?
Yeah, like 7-6 or 7-5. Like, is that a preferable? Like, that's where I kind of get a little bit lost there. Like, the fact of the matter is they have found ways to win these games, and they're with a win this weekend in Las Vegas, they're back in the number 1 seed in the AFC and control their own destiny the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And give themselves a chance. And so they don't have to at that point be looking at what's New England doing, because if the Broncos just win, they're going to end up the number 1 seed in the AFC. And so, I do think the way Bo put it, which was, hey, let's recognize what we've done and not diminish that, because it's hard to win in this league. It's hard to win each week. The Broncos went, 7-8 seasons here without a trip to the playoffs, without a 10-win season. And now to have back-to-back 10-win seasons for the first time since 2014, 2015, that's significant. And this has a chance to be much more than 10 wins, right? Still got 5 games to go. And, hopefully you keep that 1-score luck coming and or not even luck, but just that 1-score ability and keep winning. And Bo Nix himself, I believe there's only 5 quarterbacks right now with more wins in their first 2 seasons than Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. He's got 20, and he's got 5 opportunities left. So he could, if the Broncos were to win out, Bo Nix would have more wins in his first 2 seasons than anybody in NFL history. Anybody.
As the guys like to say, what are they going to say now? It's like, what are you going to say now? I mean, There's some quotes that have come out from this team that really resonate with me, and one of them is when there's like, "What are you afraid of? Like, who is there to be scared of now? Like, you guys have battled back," and then you look at this one score win, debate that people have, and it's like, okay, well, when the Chiefs were doing it last year, everyone was like, "Oh, they're just that team that can just get things done. You can never count them out," and it's like they're doing the exact same thing now. It's really interesting when you hear outside media say like, well, they're not impressive, and then you have someone call them out and be like, so who are you impressed with? Like a 6-6 team, a 7-8? As you mentioned, it's like you have to be impressed with this team, but it's one of those things where this year in particular, I don't know if it's just me or if you feel the same way, but there is no perfect team right now. Like every team has something that you feel like doesn't give them the exact crown, right? I mean, you look at the NFC, the Chicago Bears are atop the NFC right now. Currently, can you say that the Bears are the best team in the NFC? There's an argument that maybe there's other teams in there that might be better, but right now, the Bears have figured it out. You have Jacksonville and the Colts tied for top spot in the AFC South. Can you say that the Jaguars are better than the Colts? Maybe, maybe not, but the Jaguars are figuring it out. And that's part of what makes this season so special is the fact that you look at Drake May, you look at Bo Nix, they're in their second year in the league right now, and it doesn't matter how they're winning. They figured it out. That's it, period. Like, there's nothing else to say. And you look at the rest of the AFC, look at the AFC North. The Ravens are 6-6, Steelers are 6-6, Bengals are 4-8. Browns are 3-9. Would you rather be in that division or stand at 10-2 and understand that your team has figured it out to beat teams on the NFC, to beat teams within the division, and continue to push forward? And this matchup is no different. And I think, again, when you look at this matchup in particular with the Raiders, AFC West division games in general are just tough. Division games are just tough. They're going to play you tough. And Evan Ingram spoke to me, as I mentioned yesterday, and said, like, they're always going to give us their best, but something's always going to click when you're playing an AFC West rival. And so you mentioned going to Las Vegas is not going to be easy, especially when you look at that 10-7 game that they had on Thursday Night Football. But this defense, I think after the performance in Washington, they want to go after and show like, okay, we had that week rest. Now we're good. We're going to correct the mistakes that we had, and we're hopefully going to keep them scoreless the whole game this time, not just the last 3 quarters, which, I mean, is impressive in its own.
Yeah, I mean, I would sign up for allowing 7 points again. I'd be okay with me. I think starting offensively, Sean Payton said Wednesday, like, you go back and you look at that Thursday night film, that it was hard to watch. It was difficult film to watch. Obviously, the Broncos struggled. Bo Nix threw for 150 yards, a couple interceptions. I am interested to see how much of that was, one, it is worth remembering that it was windy. There was weather kind of that impacted that game. But also just we were getting toward the end of a really long stretch there, right, without even a weekend off. And I think we talked about it at the time, if I remember properly. 1999 was the last time the Broncos had a start to their season without a mini bye or a bye that late in the year. So they were coming off 4 days rest against a very physical Houston team that looks better and better and better and better. And I think, if I'm correct, has not lost since that Broncos game.
Check the stats right now.
Yeah, that's correct. They've won 4 in a row since that Broncos game. So that win continues to look better and
more
better.
Impressive.
But I do think that was just you're coming in on a short week, probably a little bit beat up. We know they didn't have Marvin Mims, missing some guys, obviously. I think to find a way to win that game was impressive. But they've got to be better, certainly. And you'd like to see them run the ball, continue to find improvement as they run the ball. RJ Harvey, I think, will continue to get better as he gets more reps. I think you saw, kind of looking back at some of the plays, some opportunities there, some times where RJ Harvey made some nice runs, and it's, I think, probably just about finding that consistency in the run game. And then Bo, I know he took a lot of heat kind of nationally for that performance against the Raiders, had a couple picks. Bo Nix, the last 2 weeks, has played really well, in my opinion. Obviously, the touchdown numbers are not kind of there in the same way. But, against the Chiefs, made a ton of big-time throws. And then in Washington, with the exception of that one interception where it looked like he just didn't see Bobby Wagner, he played a really good game as well. I mean, they scored, 20 points in the first half, or 13 points, in the first half. But 3 or 4 of their first 5 drives were all 10-plus play drives. They were moving the ball down the field. Bo was making plays on third down. We saw the 2-minute drive against the Commanders at the end of the first half. We saw the overtime drive. His ability to, as Adam Troutman said earlier this week, get him out of bad situations, make those checks at the line of scrimmage. I think Bo has played at a really high level the last couple weeks. And certainly, as you talk about, hey, if we have an elite defense, if Bo Nix plays at the level he played at the last couple weeks, there's no reason why he can't go on a run here. And so I'll be excited to see how he performs this week. Again, one of his best traits, and this is a game I point to a lot, that game last year in Vegas, it was tough going in the early portion of the game. He found a way to turn it around, had 2 touchdown passes to Cortland Sutton in the second half. I'd imagine it is going to be another tough game. Max Crosby is a guy that Sean Payton compared him yesterday to that one 6th grader with a beard that he saw when he was coaching 6th grade football in 2012. He's just he's a freak of nature, and he plays at such a high level, such high motor. These guys know well what the Broncos are going to do. The Broncos know what they are going to do. And so sometimes it can be a feeling out process early in those games. But I believe in Bo and this offense to figure things out as the game goes on. Wouldn't surprise me just based on how these games have gone if it is another close game. But I think if the Broncos can avoid the turnovers and kind of the self-inflicted errors from that game against the Raiders last time, you're going to be in a good spot to earn your 11th win. Because offensively, really, it was those 2 turnovers that hurt. And I don't think there was another turnover in that game, if I'm remembering properly. But you've got to play clean football, and that especially becomes true. Yeah, 2 turnovers for Denver. Still won the game despite losing the turnover battle. You've got to continue to play clean football. They had 11 penalties last time. You got to build off last week where you had your lowest penalty yardage of the season, I believe, and kind of keep that going. But yeah, I suspect that it'll look better than it did on Thursday night, but that doesn't mean it won't be tough sledding and still a grind to get a win.
The leaders in passing yards for Week 13, you know who's number 1?
I do actually know who that was. It was Bo Nix.
Waiting for the camera to cut to you. You deserve that sip of water. Yes, Bo Nix. Number 2 was Dak. 3 was Jacoby Brissett. Mariota was 4, and then Drake May rounded it out at 5. And so you look at, I mean, you're keeping pace, as you mentioned. You're doing what you need to do to win games. I mean, just the opening drive of overtime, the way he was able to execute, find Evan Ingram, and then obviously cap it off with a Harvey touchdown. This offense has taken very good care of Bo Nix. Have the fewest sacks in 2025, with 14. And then the defense is complementing that, having the most sacks in the NFL. We've talked about that complementary football on both sides of the ball. And you spoke about Harvey. He is very interesting because, again, it's this pressure you put on, which I understand. It's the NFL and they're 10-2. I understand that. RJ Harvey is a rookie. As being asked to really step up in these games where J.K. Dobbins is down, and he's been doing that, whether it's in the receiving game or the rushing game. Finding that continuity with the other backs is really important, but that's also going to take time as you kind of get into the rhythm with this offense and just the speed that the NFL plays at. Again, he is a rookie. He's learning every single day. This is probably the longest he's ever played football through the course of his career after leaving college. And so this matchup with the Raiders, I think, aside from the offense, which I agree with everything you said, the defense, those turnovers need to continue to come. We saw a big one by Dre Greenlaw, his first as a Bronco, when he had that interception late in the game, which I think was huge. Same thing when we talked about that Chiefs game with J-Mac and the interception that he got. I believe that Geno Smith has 14 interceptions this year. And so trying to get that pressure on him to make a mistake and capitalize on that with some points to really pull ahead, I think is going to be key too.
Yeah, and I also, one final thing on Bo. His passing yards the last 2 games, he's got 600 and, doing some quick math here in my head, 316 passing yards. 616 passing yards over the past 2 games. That's the highest total in 2 weeks in his career. So he's finding a groove, but it's about week-to-week consistency and doing what you need each week to win. But yeah, as you talk about the defense, I think we started, like you said, to see it a little bit with the Greenlaw interception there toward the end of the first half. We saw it with, we almost saw it with Hufanga pulling in an interception or, creating the deflection that led to the interception. It would have been Brandon Jones there, I think, had that flag not been thrown. But I still think the way the Broncos are playing defensively without the turnovers, when this flips, and I still believe it'll flip, and you get a 2 takeaway game or a 3 takeaway game, that's when I believe that you could, that's going to really help them down the road. And I don't know if that's going to come in one of these final regular season games. I don't know if that's going to come in the postseason, but a team playing as well as the Broncos and, quite frankly, having as many opportunities to get takeaways, at some point it's going to flip, right? And we've seen so many near interceptions. We've seen a couple fumbles that have been recovered by the other team. At some point, those are going to go in Denver's favor. Right now, they've got, I think 3 games. Yeah, 3 games this year with multiple takeaways. And so, but then from a fumble perspective, their last 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, I think their last 6 forced fumbles, the offense has recovered all of those. So that's a luck-based statistic. At some point, that's going to come back toward the Broncos and benefit them. And you hope that the Broncos are able to continue to move up the takeaway rankings. Currently, they're tied for 26 in the NFL in takeaways. And so if you can get a few more of those to go with this really good defense, and I've said it again and again, some teams rely on takeaways to play good defense. And the Broncos in 2023, I would say, were that type of team. They needed the takeaways to beat these really good teams. And you still might need them in the playoffs in that sort of environment. Even that 2015 team, that the forced fumble, again, recovery against the Steelers late in the game in the divisional round, they probably don't win that game without that, right? Or Von Miller picks off Tom Brady. Those are big plays. Yeah. So that's something I'll be watching for, and I think is a good call out. And then the other thing defensively I'll be watching is just Brock Bowers. The Broncos really held him in check this last matchup with a new offensive coordinator, kind of a new old offensive coordinator coming back. How do they try to get him involved? What does the run game look like with Ashton Genty? Last year in Vegas, Surtain covered Bowers and pretty much just shut him down. And I'll be interested, is that the same strategy the Broncos use this time? Do they have a different plan of attack? But that'll be something worth watching, because I do think Bowers is one of those guys that he's talented enough to break a game open and keep a team in a game and good enough to win a game. And so the Broncos have to have a plan for him and contain him as well as they did in their last meeting.
I agree. And I think the tight end position in general is interesting because that's what Washington did. I mean, Zach Ertz, I believe he had 100 yards, which was the only second 100-yard receiver type player that the Broncos allowed 100 yards for. And I think this is a copycat league, right? And so if you're going to look at that tape from Washington and be like, okay, what did Zach Ertz do to kind of get opened up or whatever it is, it's going to be interesting to see what that matchup brings. But I think the other key point, you brought it up, Pat Surtain. He did not play when the Raiders were here in town due to an injury, being sidelined. And now he's back, and you're looking at the impact of what he brings to the table. I mean, you saw it on display on Sunday Night Football, the way he was playing these receivers, and he's only allowed 5.5 yards per target in 2025, which is 6th among CBs with a minimum of 40 targets. And so you look at the impact that he's able to have, and I think him coming back for primetime and then this key divisional game, and really as you close out the season, is really perfect timing, because these 5 games, 3 of them are divisional matchups. And as they mentioned, that's where it all starts to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, Pat, I mean, anytime you can add the defensive player of the year back to your defense, and the defense went 3-0 and allowed
they did their
less
job.
than 15 points. this is just, I think in general, a big bounce back opportunity for Denver's defense. And I think there were some things that we saw last week. I talked to Zach Allen, too many missed tackles, for example, early against Washington. The third down numbers didn't start out good, got that corrected. Late in the game, there were the long third downs, long fourth downs that Washington was able to convert. You want to make sure that you quickly say, like, that's not a trend here. That's something that we can clean up, that maybe that was some post-bye week rust or whatever it was. But again, I'll just be interested to see kind of what the defense looks like and how they respond, because last year, late in the year, and it was while they were dealing with injuries, but there were some teams, whether it was the Browns, the Colts, the Bengals, that had success. And then to some degree, Buffalo in the playoffs. So I think that game was actually close for a long time before it kind of got out of hand late. But one of the traits of this team, right, is playing good defense and running the ball. And that's going to be important for the final 5 games of the year. It's going to be important for whatever postseason run the Broncos try to make. And so you've got to get back to that kind of elite type defense, and knowing that, especially when you play the sorts of offenses you're going to play down the stretch here, like a Green Bay, like Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are playing well right now, and then we'll see kind of what Herbert's status is. But then when you get in the playoffs and you're playing all sorts of, is it Buffalo, is it New England, with the potential MVP and Drake May, like, you're going to face good teams, and you're not necessarily going to shut them out, but like, how do you make big plays and not allow those long third down conversions, or keep them out of the end zone when they're down inside the 20-yard line? Those are important things, and that'll be critical to the Broncos' hopes the rest of the way. And so I'd love to see a sign that, like, hey, they've whatever we saw last week on a few plays, that's corrected. I think Talanoa Hufanga said the details remain critically important, right? And so that'll just be, from my perspective, interesting to watch.
This game is, again, any AFC West game really is one of my favorites to watch, because it's really a measuring stick. And I think I said at the beginning of the season after they played the Chargers, it's going to be really interesting to see after that loss how they play at the end of the season when you play the Chargers again. And so these games are just ones that you mentioned, like, it has higher implications. Now, whether the players know about what it means in terms of tiebreak and things like that is one thing. But I think for the fan base, it's just one of those things, like, this is also just another game you need to get. Like, this is a team that you, on paper, and obviously barring anything can happen on Sunday, magic there, it is a game you should win. And it's a game that you should dominate based on what you've been able to do. I mean, the Raiders have 5 games where they scored 10 points or less, I think. And then they have 4 games of kind of like that 11 to 20 points range, and then 3 games where they scored more than 20 points, 2 of those coming with wins. So keeping them in check, really stalling out their offense is kind of a way that they can kind of do that. As you mentioned, bouncing back from that bye week is huge. And this AFC race, as we talked about over and over again, we're going to keep talking about it as we get closer and closer to the end. Every game is just so important. And we've mentioned it. The Chiefs play on Sunday Night Football. The Chargers play on Monday Night Football. And so you're able to get a up-close look and prime time of how these teams are going to play, because you're going to face them in a few weeks. But yet you can't overlook the Packers. You can't overlook the Jaguars, who are at top of their division right now. So these next few weeks are going to be interesting to watch. And I'm curious, little monkey wrench for you. What game are you looking forward to the most from the AFC? Is it this Chiefs game on Sunday Night Football?
Or
versus
around
the Texans?
the league, you mean?
Yeah. Or what, just from AFC? Like, was it the Chiefs or the Texans, or the Colts-Jaguars game, or the Monday night game? Because New England's on a bye, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that in terms of kind of what the Broncos face next, and I'm going to kind of hedge a little bit, in terms of what they face next, I'm interested to see what the Jaguars look like against the Colts, just because that's the next team, 2 weeks from now, but they're coming up soon. I think, obviously, for the Broncos, like, we're always just going to have an eye on that Chiefs game, right? And, like, a loss there would essentially end their playoff hopes. They've got to win out. They've got a really beat up offensive line, and the Texans have as good a defensive front as anybody in the league. And so if the Texans can get the Chiefs there, that helps the Broncos, and it keeps it keeps a team like the Chiefs out of the postseason, which, I kind of go back and forth because if you were hosting a playoff game and the Chiefs were to come here, for example, you know them well. I think in some ways you're like built to beat that team. But at the same time, it's a team that has been to the last 3 Super Bowls. They know how to win. Patrick Mahomes makes plays. I go back and forth, right? Because, like, you're certainly not afraid. Like we've said, you're not afraid of anybody. You've beaten these teams. And actually have beaten the Chiefs 3 years in a row, including 2 with the starters. So you're not afraid. And you're going to play good teams in the playoffs. So it's almost like you can't dodge anybody when you get into the postseason. So it's not about that. I think it's more just like, be nice if these guys just sat one out.
And just for your knowledge, the Packers play the Bears on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, and that'll be another. There's a lot of good games this weekend. In terms of what matters most for the Broncos' immediate playoff hopes, I know we mentioned you can't clinch anything this weekend except for that tiebreaker over New England, but an early look ahead to next week. If the Broncos were to win their next 2 games, they clinch a playoff spot. If the Broncos were to win the next 2 games and the Chargers lose their next 2 games, which is against the Eagles on Monday Night Football at home, and then next week at Kansas City, if the Chargers drop both those games, the Broncos would clinch the AFC West next week. Now, you could say, and it kind of depends, like, do the Chiefs beat the Texans? Well, then maybe you say,
right.
now we want the chart. A lot of
moving parts,
variables there. But that's kind of the short of it is that as early as next week, if the Broncos can take care of business and get just 2 results from the Chargers to go their way, they could be division champions as early as next week. And so, in terms of the clinching with 2 wins, I'm 99% sure that that's the case. Because when you look at the standings, the Texans have 5 losses, and if you win the next 2, any team with 6 losses is essentially eliminated. But Houston plays Indy still, so say you give that loss to the Colts, that would give them 5. Jacksonville and the Colts play 2 more times. They each have 4. So if either of those teams were to then pick up 2 of those losses or even 1 of those losses, it would bump them out. So that's where kind of 2 more wins for the Broncos, I believe, should get it done. We'll see some official playoff clinching scenarios, I'm sure, early next week. But as I just kind of eye the standings and try to figure out what's going on, that's my interpretation is that 2 Broncos wins, 2 Chargers losses equals the division. 2 Broncos wins should equal a playoff berth. So exciting stuff.
It's getting down to the nitty-gritty here as we go into Week 14. So going back to the comment that was left, it talked about Pro Bowl voting. You guys can head over to our Broncos socials on Twitter especially, and you can always do hashtag Pro Bowl vote for the player that you want to vote for. They've been tweeting out everyone's kind of handles and things like that. So make sure, again, you guys visit our social media accounts to look at that. But looking at the top Pro Bowl votes across the league, it's very interesting to see how fans are voting and all these things. But what has caught your eye, or who do you have in the Pro Bowl mix? I mean, obviously we want everyone to go, of course, but just talking it out.
Yeah, there's all sorts of guys that really are deserving. Garett Bolles, starting on the offensive side, I've mentioned kind of his ability to play at a really high level. There's a new Protector of the Year award that's going to be given out. I think Bolles should absolutely be up for consideration for that. And then, is it Quinn Miners, who I believe last year did not make the Pro Bowl, but was a first-team All-Pro. And so also worth taking all this with a grain of salt that some of these are like the Pro Bowl, it tends to be a little bit heavier on like the named guys, the guys that is it a couple of those guys? Defensively, I think Nick Bonito is a slam dunk. He should absolutely make it. He's tied for 3rd in the AFC with 10.5 sacks. Like if he can get a couple more here, that would be a big deal. He's also, I think, has the name recognition and the benefit of like he's made some of these big time plays to end games. So he's one. Zach Allen, who last year 2nd-team All-Pro, but I think just, again, the name recognition, he deserves to be in the Pro Bowl. I think he leads the NFL in QB hits, I believe. So I look at those two kind of along the line. Pat, even though he's missed 3 games, I think he just continues to play at a really high level. And that'll be interesting to see. That's one where, he doesn't necessarily have the takeaway totals this year, but still limiting guys. And I think you just watch him play and you know how good he is. And then one guy that I don't think has ever made one. Let me just check this real quick.
I know who you're going to say. As you look that up?
He's made one. Sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off there. Talanoa Hufanga has just played at like a ridiculous level. He's been so good. And I don't know, for everybody else that I've mentioned, if I were to pick one guy that is like, get this guy to the Pro Bowl, it would be Talanoa Hufanga. He has made such a huge difference. He's a first-team All-Pro in 2022 in terms of free agent acquisitions and their impact on this team. I mean, you got to start with Hufanga. He's everywhere. He blows up plays near the line of scrimmage. I'm sure he wishes he has 2 or 3 interceptions based on the opportunities he's had. But he is just so much fun to watch. And I think a tone setter for this defense. And when you look at a defense as good as Denver's, you say, okay, who are the guys that set the tone? And Talanoa Hufanga is one of those guys. He absolutely deserves to be a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. And you're right. Like, he's one of those guys that he just flies around and he's unselfish, team captain for the first time in his career here with the Broncos. And I think it's exciting to watch him develop. And he's one of those guys we've talked about even when he first came in free agency. We're like, he's just exciting to watch. And then when you actually get to see it in practice and at games, he is that player that he just flies out of nowhere. Like, even I was watching the replay of Dre Greenlaw's interception, and then in the back corner, you just see Huff just make a tackle, and you're like, where did you come from? I think another guy that a lot of the guys are showing love to is Devin Key. And I think, him leading in tackles on special teams is really impressive. You love to see the guys rally around him and tweeting out and saying that he deserves to be a Pro Bowler, because what he's been able to do, as you mentioned, it's not those super flashy plays that are going to be played on, top 10 and things like that, but they do make an impact. And he's one of those guys that's kind of doing that dirty work, especially as the rules have changed on special teams to really kind of make an impact on the field.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And I think he's definitely a guy worth mentioning. And I also just think we heard Sean Payton say it on Wednesday, like, this team loves playing together. And I think when you see tweets like that of highlighting a guy like Devin Key making plays, that shows you kind of the closeness and the bond that this team has, and it's cool to see. So he would be an absolute a great pick to make it to Santa Clara. The Pro Bowl now held at the same place as the Super Bowl. Yes. And actually, for being honest, I hope that nobody on the Broncos is able to participate, because
that is a very, very good point and a perfect way to end this episode of Altitude Advantage. So again, for all your Pro Bowl voting information, make sure you guys head over to our Denver Broncos social channels. We appreciate you guys listening to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our mathematician, did some math on today's episode, so we'll give you that name, and our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. We appreciate you guys listening. Again, make sure you guys comment, let us know your thoughts on the game, and we look forward to Monday for the next episode of Altitude Advantage, so stay tuned.